Boom. Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Chuck's RAWVERSATIONS or RAWVERSATIONS. I don't know. It is whatever I decide it's going to be that particular day. And today I have my good buddy, Kyrun Silva. You're right. I love the opposite camera. Who, Kyrun and I have probably known each other for about 3 years now, and we've worked together a fair amount, but we don't get the chance to do this very much. And that's why I love these conversations, because we really get to kind of get into each other's heads and talk about cool things. So first off, why don't we start? Kyrun, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, my name is Kyrun Silva. I'm from Sacramento, California, born and raised on the playgrounds is where I spent most of my days, chilling out, maxing out, acting all cool, now shooting some b-ball. Oh, sorry, never mind. I was born and raised in Sacramento. I have a few kids that I try not to say they're mine, but legally they are. I have 2 dogs. I just got my second dog yesterday, so we've been having some fun time dealing with a puppy. And I produce comics. I've been doing this for the last 6 years now. 3 years for full time. Before that, it was part-time type of deal. So, yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. For you guys out there, I'm Chuck Pineau. I'm a writer and editor. I have my own company, Bonfire Press, and I've done an awful lot of stuff. And of course, you guys see me on these indie events and in comic book advocates and all that kind of stuff. So I've been around a little bit. One of the things the big thing that we're gonna talk about today is collaboration in comics. And I thought that was a fun thing for me to talk with Kyrun about, because Kyrun and I have both worked for each other. I edited one of Kyrun's books, and he came in and penciled and inked a story that I wrote. So I thought that was kind of funny that we had both worked for one another, and we could find out about one another's processes and whatnot. So basically, we'll be chatting with each other, asking each other questions, and going into one another's works and all that kind of stuff. Kyrun, when you started out, the name of the company, was that Big Tree Inc. or something like that?
Yeah, I started off with Big Tree Comics. It was actually a company I created back in 2015, I think. And I started on my own, and I named it Big Tree Comics because in Sacramento, at one point, the nickname was the city with the most trees in the world, which we had like the most trees per square foot or something like that compared to any other city. So I was like, this is nice homage to the city I grew up in and loved. And I worked with Big Tree Comics for 3 years. And it got to a point where I felt like I needed to branch out on my own, because I brought a couple of people along with me, Larry Haynes, Ricky Eady, and Dennis Nancaro. And I helped them produce their own books too. And then about 3 years later, I said, you know what? I want to branch on my own so I can just do my own thing, not have to worry about anybody else. It's just all on me and have all the pressure be on me. And that's why I created Taurus Comics. So I wanted to be the head of everything at that point.
And I get that. I completely get that. How has that worked out for you, would you say?
There's been pitfalls and there's been a lot of highlights. That's for sure. I mean, one of the things when you're on your own is you get to dictate what happens. You get to oversee everything. And if something comes out, it's all on you. So you get to take all the praise. But then when things go bad, like let's say delays in production, or something isn't quite what it should be, it also falls on me. So there's pitfalls where I don't have anybody to bounce ideas off of sometimes that are part of the company. I always have you. There's people like Sean Barbour and others that I can bounce ideas off of, but ultimately it's my company, so there's a higher stake for me to really get it right than somebody else who's on the outside. Yeah.
And how difficult was it to remember that his name was Barbour?
I've actually got it down. Ever since I did that video for you guys, I think it was for Belial 1, I did that video and I had to hear him say his name over and over again. It's ingrained in me, Nora.
Dude, I literally, so for those of you who don't know out there, Sean Barbour is, he's been my partner for like 2 or 3 years. He inked Welcome to the Void back in 2017, 2018. Yeah. And we worked together on Belial.
Which I'm still waiting on Belial 2. What's up? I want Belial 2.
Okay, Belial 2 is actually, we're aiming to come out in October.
All right.
We have Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So, dude, I love having someone behind the scenes who's helping us out.
That
That's very
magic.
helpful. Because this is your project.
It is.
Speaking, you were nice enough to mention mine, but this is Saw. We're on issue 3 already, and you basically been knocking out one of these a year with other projects in between.
Yes. Yeah. And that was originally the goal, was to do one a year and try to really push myself to make sure I'm doing one each year, no matter what, of this series. Because this has been my biggest success so far. Even though I've had 2 other series, Shaman's Destiny I did 6 issues of, and now Ruby from Planet Oz. But this is what I'm known for.
So we're talking about collaborations and whatnot. Why don't you tell me a little bit about you as the leader of this team, and anything that you've had to do to kind of make that happen and oversee everything?
Well, with this issue 3, I brought in Erwin Ropa as a new lead artist on it. The original artist, David Jackson, he did issues 1 and 2, and he's now gone on and doing some amazing things with his own artwork and with other publishers. So I wanted to bring in someone that was going to be there for me, because Dave is always backed up and always busy. That's good. But I needed somebody who was going to be there on a time frame that I needed. And with Erwin, I have my script already written out, and I just send him the pages, and he'll start giving me thumbnails of what it looks like and what he envisioned it. And I'll be like, yeah, I like this, I don't like that. And I'll ask him to change it. And he's really good about that, which is really nice. If you have an artist that you can really work with and they're willing to make changes, as long as they're not like nitpicking on things, it's really nice to be able to work with somebody like that. And then on top of that, we have the colorist is Federico Siak. I think that's how you say his last name. He's done issues 1, 2, and now 3 on the coloring. And he's actually, if you look at his artwork from issues 1 and 2 compared to what he's producing here in the page that you're seeing, he is just jumping leaps and bounds on his abilities. And I'm just floored when he produces something for me. And then finally, we have Nikki Powers, who also did the lettering for issues 1 and 2. She's back for issue 3. And Nikki is actually really professional, and she'll find things where I've gone and maybe had like a edit that needs to be done, or had like some grammar issues, and she'll be like, hey, were you trying to really say this? And I'm like, oh, you know what? Let me change this real quick. And she'll be like, okay, I'm glad I caught that. So it's nice I'm able to work with people that are professional on this and are looking out, not just to get the book out there, but to do the best quality work that they can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. And you brought up a really interesting point wherein even as you're working through a series, sometimes changes need to be made. People's schedules don't work. You see it all the time in like movies and stuff where they need to cast someone new or whatever for any number of reasons. And I think that's something that we need to remind people an awful lot, is that you have to be ready to pivot and to just say, okay, that was working well, but we now need to like switch up a little bit and try something different. And I'm glad, the lead artist, that's one of the tougher roles to pivot on.
Yeah, and especially because with most artists, a lot of them are trying to make this their full-time job. So if you're going from one person to another, you're not just affecting your book, you're affecting somebody's livelihood at times. Yeah. So it wasn't a decision I made lightly when I switched from David to Erwin. And I still work with David. I actually done some work with David on the side here and there. Actually, he's produced the image for the t-shirt that's part of the Saw Kickstarter.
Is that the one you're wearing, or is that a different one?
No, this one is actually designed by Brian Silveira.
I love that guy's work.
Yeah, kill work. But no, the chibi t-shirts that are available at the Kickstarter right now were designed by David Jackson. Yep, those right there.
Dude, you're awesome.
Now, Brian actually did produce a poster for this Kickstarter also. He did this really cool poster with Saw versus all these other lightning gods from different parts of the world. And
is this the have like here?
Yeah. So we have Thor, we have Zeus, we have Raiden from Mortal Kombat. When I had this idea, I was like, well, everybody knows Thor as a lightning god or the god of thunder, but we don't really associate all these other gods from different parts of the world. So I wanted to say, I told Brian, I was like, dude, put as many as you can and make it like they're all attacking her. And he did a killer job with that. I couldn't have been more excited for that.
Yeah, no, he really did, dude. I totally agree with you there.
And then you got Nestor. I see Nestor Radulia did the coloring. And if you don't know Nestor, he actually is doing some of the work for the comic book Punchline.
Oh, I love that book.
Yeah, he's a colorist on that book too. So he did the coloring work for this and the variant cover that I'm offering here with Tim Green.
Okay, now that's something I'm very jealous of you for. You have worked with some really cool people who have done some really neat stuff. Like, I mean, Nestor is a really good example, but also you've got Timothy Green has done a bunch of great work. Isn't he doing Ava?
I think he was doing Ava. He did Guardians of the Galaxy for Marvel. He's done so many things over the years. I mean, he's been working for Marvel or DC for the last like 20 years, I think.
Cool. And then you did this beautiful cover for me for Welcome to the Void that ended up going with the Advocator. Such a beautiful piece. And then I find out that Anthony Lee is the colorist on there. And I was like, holy crap. Like, how are you getting these people? How do you meet these people?
Well, Tim Green actually lives in Sacramento. So I met him at an actual event here. And it was just one of those passing things like, hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you. And then I just kept in contact with him through Facebook. And the opportunity came up and I was like, hey, do you have the time? He's like, dude, yeah, let's do it. And then with Anthony, I actually met him through a friend of mine named Michael Dorman, who's also an artist. Michael's done some work for me on different projects. Yeah, yes. And Michael introduced me. He said, dude, if you're going to get anybody to do any of your work, get Anthony. Anthony is professional among professionals. He's so talented. And anytime I give Anthony something, I'll be like, this is what I want. And Anthony will be like, I can do that, but let me do this and show you what it looks like. And I'll be like, okay, yeah, you're right. That was so much better than my idea. And he did, he colored for Joseph Duas. He colored the cover for that I did for Super Heresies. And,
oh, that's right.
And I had this idea and I was like, hey, can you make it look like a little old? And he's like, I could do even better than that. I can make it look like it's an old comic book and how it's all beat up and worn. When you get like those old comics from the 40s and 50s and they're all really, I was like, yes, that's even better. Do that. And he was like, I got you. And he busted out. And he's so professional. He's so quick on it. I mean, you can give him something and within like a week, you'll have a finished project. It's just, it's mind boggling.
See, I love that stuff. There was a professional that I was working with recently, and I said very similar thing. I said, I don't know crap about color. So this is the general idea of what I want. And here's the colors for our other covers for Belial. So now you know what the characters generally look like, but they're black and white, so have fun. And he's like, okay, great. Are you sure you don't have any of that? I was like, no, I already know you're talented. Just do you. Yeah, we'll be fine.
I mean, when you can find somebody that's that talented where you're like, I don't have anything in mind, just go wild. And you know they're going to produce quality work. That's always fun.
Yeah.
You can just let them go and be like, just be an artist at that point.
Yeah. Do you have anyone else that you're really excited or aiming to work with? Because you seem like the kind of guy who's always looking for the next step.
I mean, there's always people that I've actually have reached out to and they've said maybe are Dan Fraga.
Oh, wow.
I reached out to him before and he and I conversed, not like every month or anything like that, but we conversed a while ago and he was like, yo, dude, if I have the time, let me know and I'll do that. Marcus Williams. I don't know if you're familiar with Marcus Williams, but he does Tuskegee Airs.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I've always wanted to work with him, and I think he would do a killer saw. So I was hoping maybe I could get my way up there. And then the other person who I sort of worked with, I at least commissioned him for, was Edwin Wong, who did Skull Kickers from Image Comics a few years ago. He's done some stuff from Marvel and DC. But he did a commission piece for me, a Saw the Lightning Wielder, and he just did with pencil and ink and markers, and it's just amazing. I've shown it before, and people are like, "You can just make that into a cover. It's that good, even with just marker." And I was like, "Yeah, I could, but I want something better than this. I think he can do better with more time."
Yeah, right.
Because
I completely hear you there.
I mean, I commissioned him to do that at an Anime Expo in Los Angeles a couple of years ago, and he busted out in like a couple hours. So I'm just thinking, what if he has a week to do something? I could have the ultimate cover and, you know, be killed. So I don't know, but there's always people I'm trying to look out with. And then, I mean, I have for me, there's like writers I want to work with. I've always, you and I have worked together, but I still think you and I have some stories that we could do. So that's down the line, hopefully. But
I feel like those 8 pages were just a tease for us.
I'm hoping.
And I'm not like, it's not because we're live or anything, but I love what you and I created. Oh, yeah. And that's Invasion or Cthulhu Invades Oz.
And I'm excited for people to see that. That's gonna blow people's minds.
Dude, I think we really brought out something kind of messed up, actually.
Yeah. And it's not just us, like almost everything I've seen has just been just otherworldly. And that's in literally and figuratively otherworldly. It's just amazing what some of these people that we were working with are producing. And so I'm excited for people to really get their hands on that.
My pitch for that book so far has been, whenever you're in an anthology, you look through the anthology to see where the crappy story is. Because you go, okay, cool, like that's the one. And I'm like, so far I haven't found one, and that worries me, because we have a saying at the poker table. Oh, crap. And at the poker table, the term is donkey, which is basically just a terrible player. And they say, if you can't find the donkey at the table, it's you.
I knew you were going to go that way.
Right? And so I'm so worried that I'm like, and I know we did a good job, and Alan, who came in with the colors, friggin' killed it. But I'm like, I can't find anybody's pieces that suck.
I don't think we're the donkey.
That scares me.
I don't think
we're the donkey.
I don't think so. Honestly, I don't know if we're the best. We might be mid-range. But I think we're closer to the better part of this story, at least visually. And I might sound a little egotistical.
No,
visually,
I agree.
We're up there. I just haven't read anybody else's story, so I don't know if your script, which was fantastic, the little twist at the end, which I can't wait for people to read and really get into their mind. I want people to really see that and be like, Chuck is effed up. Yeah.
Which is funny, because I don't usually do horror, but like my brain went straight there, and it was funny. Greg Alisi, who I have great respect for.
He's another person I want to work with someday.
Right? And such a super talented guy. And he and I got to talking one night, and we were showing off our pieces. And he read my script, and he said, wait a second. Did what I just think happen? I was like, yeah. He's like, that is messed up. I'm like, oh, good. That's exactly what I was hoping for.
I know. When I read your script, I did the same thing. I was like, I got to read this again to make sure I got that right. And I read it. I was like, it did. That happened exactly like I thought.
Good. And with your visuals, I think it's going to be even more messed up. So it's terrific.
No, I think I've read Greg's portion of it through Brian, because Brian's doing the artwork on that.
That's right.
With Brian's inks and pencils, oh God. I'm sorry, but that might be the best part of it. Just visually, it's stunning. What Brian pulled on it's stunning.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Now, but that takes us to another part, because you're used to being the big dog. How do you feel about working with other people? How's that been?
I mean, it all depends on who I'm working with. There's some people I don't mind working with, because I know where their hearts are at in the project. And some people are there to make a good quality book, and other people are there just to make money. And if I'm working with somebody that wants to produce a good quality book, I'm fine with that. I'm going to put my full effort into it, and I know we're going to produce something great. But if you're there just to make money, that tells me that you're not really caring about it. You're just there. And I don't want to work with people like that. I want to work with people who's willing to put good books out.
Yeah. Have you had that a lot?
Nothing that's been produced. I've been approached by people that just coming off the bat when they introduce themselves, I can tell what their motives are. So I try to stay away from people like that.
It's funny. I had a guy contact me recently. He said, "How much are you for edits?" And so I told him my price, which, by the way, is okay. So it's money, so it's not nothing. But as far as hiring anyone else on the team, the editor is probably the cheapest thing you can get,
and it's one of the more important parts too. I mean,
especially someone who's willing, like myself, who's willing to go all the way through the book and help wherever you need it. And I sent them the price, and he completely balked. He was just like, "Whoa!" And I said, "Dude, you have an entire team that makes I'm a
10,
very
20.
tiny fraction of what they make." And he's like, "Yeah, but I'm just glad I don't have an editor." And I have to be honest, part of me was like, that does not make me want to read your book at all.
No,
really,
you're not putting
it doesn't.
Effort. I mean,
yeah.
And it sort of sounds like you might have been the first person they've reached out to about editing, and then they were expecting something really low. And I get that. But then as you shop around, you're going to realize your prices, because I've gotten your prices, is very competitive with everybody out there, especially the experienced editors. I mean, you don't want to get just anybody editing a book. You want somebody that's going to, tell you where you're making mistakes and tell you where you're doing good and tell you where your strengths are and then help you fix those things that aren't that good. I mean, you don't want anybody that's just going to be somebody kissing your ass, basically.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've had to raise my prices. Like when I started, I was at like $75 a book, which is honestly, you're losing money at that point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it just the amount of time that you put into it, it's really not worth it. And so I've had to go up a lot since then. Now that got me a lot of work, and so now I'm in a different place and I can afford to charge what I charge. But nonetheless, like it's still not a lot of money in the grand scheme of making comics, and what they can do for you is pretty huge. And it's funny because, and this is definitely not an attack on artists. Obviously, in comics, we need what you guys do. But I believe that a good editor, and especially one that's going to help push the book, the amount of money that they charge, yes, we're still ready for comics. Thank you for the comments.
I mean, Chuck and I could just talk all day, though.
I know, we totally could. The amount that an editor charges could literally be shown in profit. Like you could see that amount of money. So let's say a person charges like $200 or $300 as an editor, they can make you that much money on your Kickstarter. Whereas an artist who's charging you like $2,000, not quite as, you know what I mean?
It's going to take a while. It's going to take a while to get that money back, even in a Kickstarter. Because even with most people don't even really understand, most Kickstarters, unless you're really going above the goal, don't usually. We love you too, Travis.
Yes, absolutely we do.
But most Kickstarters don't even make the amount that it takes to produce that book. I know a lot of creators that are still going out of pocket, even when they hit their first goal and stretch goals. And it's because there's so many factors that you just can't know when everything comes about. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, an editor is nothing compared to an artist and an inker and a colorist and even a letterer sometimes,
Well, and especially starting out, most of us are just worried about paying for printing. Like we just want to get the books printed and out there and shipped. Those are our priorities. So a lot of us, when you start seeing Kickstarters that are going for 5, 6, 7K, you're getting into that range. It's like, oh, okay, they're actually paying off their people with that, and that's great.
That's right.
I mean, regardless, people are getting paid, but yeah.
When Walter Ostley, I don't know if that's how you say it. He has this great calculator that actually helps you determine what your goal should be, and that's what I've been using now, and it's working out really good.
Is that why you have that really weird goal?
Yeah, he had. I know it's like $2.
Is it like $2,502 or something?
Yes. And watch me only make 2,500. I'll be mad.
Like, you were wrong, calculator, dead wrong.
But no, but it is exactly because of that, because he factors in so many things that you can't think of, like shipping costs, which a lot of times people don't consider, and the printing costs of the other rewards along with the book, which sometimes people forget to include that in their goals. Like, yeah, you have this cool print, but now you have to take money out of your goal to make that print happen. So you got to factor all these things in. Some people just say, oh, I just need this to pay off the writer, I need this to pay out the artist team, and I need this to print it. I'm good. It's like, yeah, but you're also forgetting, Kickstarter fees and people that drop their pledges at the last second or all these other things. So you gotta, there's a lot of things that he puts in that calculator, and if you don't have it, I'll send it to you. But it goes down to like nitty gritty things. You're right, an editor is definitely needed.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
A quality editor is definitely needed. You can just get anybody edit it, but quality editor is definitely needed.
It's funny. I was brought onto a book, and they brought me onto the book, and he's like, "You're going to deal with some of the later issues, but I'd like you to read the early ones." And I read through it, and I was like, "Hey, man, I noticed that you didn't. So I guess you didn't have an editor for that." And he's, "Oh no, I did." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah." I was like, "Dude, no offense, but there is no story. This is just like a series of events that happen. And B, there's a lot of spelling mistakes and stuff." Yeah. And they're like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, man." And so I actually went back and changed, helped them out and changing that stuff just so that we can continue to move forward.
And did you get paid for all the extra work?
Yeah, but it was just proofing. Okay. So proofing alone is considerably cheaper. See the math, and that was another thing I was thinking about is the math. A lot of times people do like a $250 stretch goal. Well, if you have something physical in that $250 stretch goal, it's actually affecting your shipping price, which means that if you only made $250, you have to produce that thing, and you have to figure out how much more you're going to end up shipping. And again, if it goes out to all of your physical backers, that could easily jump over the $250. So you need to think about those things in like a much broader idea. And that's why I hate small stretch goals.
And again, not to go back, but Walter's calculator actually includes a section just for stretch goals. So that's why I say it goes into so much detail. And I mean, there's so many things that people just don't forget or don't do that they forget about that is going to affect your bottom line. And which is why so many times projects get delayed, because we run out of funds sometimes and we have to wait till paychecks to come in and pay other stuff. And that's being honest. I mean, I was looking at a Kickstarter today that was supposed to have been, the rewards were supposed to have shipped 5 years ago, and they still haven't received it. And I was like, wow, this person is not doing anything on their projects. And that sucks when you don't get your work or you don't get the books. Are you doing station?
It's not me, but let's do this station identification. Go ahead.
At Geek Insider, we foster relationships with those in the geek sphere so we can give our audience the insider view of entertainment, tech, and more.
Dude, we've got commercials. Like, I feel like we've hit the big time.
God, man. Do we get an announcer too, or what?
I know, right?
Is there going to be credits at the end of all this? Because this was awesome.
I don't know, but I'm loving this, man. Oh, guys. So just so everyone's aware, this isn't us. This is the guys in the background. This is Rob Anderson. This is Meredith Loughran. Like, guys, thank you so much. This is just
crazy right now.
Fun, right?
Oh, God. Thank you, Rob, for doing all this. Thank you, Meredith.
Yeah. Oh, that's terrific. That was a lot of fun. Like, wait, we have commercials?
You looked as surprised as I was. I was like, Grr.
I was, but I love it. That's terrific. Where the hell were we?
Oh, let's do another station identification. Because I threw away. This is awesome.
Do we have any more? Because that was great.
You did not prepare me for this.
I didn't even know, dude. That's fantastic. I think I threw out my neck from laughing. Holy crap.
I'm crying right now. This is hilarious.
Wow, guys, at home. Oh, jeez.
Bravo.
Yeah, absolutely bravo. That's hilarious.
Okay.
We were talking about Kickstarters, but really, we should be talking about collaborating and working together.
It's all hand in hand.
I'm still stuck on the fucking commercial.
Oh man.
So, but you mostly do your own stuff. Like you mostly work for yourself, and then you bring on. Would you say that you prefer working for yourself?
Yeah, I do. I'm just someone that I don't like waiting for other people if I don't have to. So I want to just do what I want to do. And too many times I find when you're working with other people, egos get in the way. Especially when the bigger the group, the more egos come involved, and I just don't like to deal with that kind of stuff sometimes. Yeah. Like I said, if it's people that I know and I trust and I know are on the same path, then let's go for it. Let's do it. Let's see what we can put together. But I've been burned too many times with working in the past with other people.
So for you guys out there, we're not going to be talking about the Kickstarter too much, but I love that it's up there. However,
wait, hold on. Wait, watch the video real quick.
Okay. I know what you're doing.
Yeah. And bam, there we go. Yeah, a little shout out.
I love that, by the way. I love that so much. But we have just under another half an hour, and he's at 1977. We're going to show this at the end, and I would really, really appreciate it if you could help us. Who's that handsome mother?
That guy needed a haircut before he did that
video. Need a haircut. That's true. Now that you and I are both freshly shorn. I would like to see that get up to 2,000 by the time we show this next.
That would be great.
If you guys could jump on there, and honestly, I'm not a part of this team, and I'm okay with that because I've enjoyed watching it as a fan, and I have to give you kudos. When I did my first raw review of issue 1, one of the little things that I said was because Saw is about I basically say it's like Thor for the Hmong people. Yeah. For the Hmong culture. And so what was really interesting about it and what I wanted to know more was I wanted to know more about those people and their culture and the deity and all that kind of stuff. And I remember saying that, and I believe you already had issue 2 pretty much mapped out, and you went, okay, I got to change it. I got to make sure to add that stuff. And you had this stuff at the end. You had phrases in there. Yeah. You had, I remember she has this belt, and it has these just has these little circles on it. And I was like, cool, she's got circles. Like everybody's got circles. That's neat. And then I found out that they were coins, and that's a ceremonial thing.
Yeah, and then for their culture, it's a sign of wealth. The more coins they have on their garments, then it's just to show that they have more wealth compared to somebody else. And the clothing that they would wear is only for special occasions. So it's like, big gatherings, things like that. They have what's called a Hmong New Year, which they go and it's like a gigantic festival, bunch of food. And they have like games and things like that, and people traditionally will dress up to show off their clothing now. So I want to include as much of that as possible, along with the phrasing, because I felt like if I'm going to introduce the culture, let's introduce the language also, and let's show people, because the language is so unique. And I think I told you this because like they didn't have a written language until they came to the United States. And then it was missionaries decided to help them make a written language. Everything before that was all word of mouth. All their history was passed down from person to person by word of mouth and storytellers and shamans. And I was like, well, let's show people how to say some basic things like you would Spanish and German, whatever language you learn at school. And let's do something different with comics with it and make it more educational along with action and fun and adventure.
I think it's hilarious because how funny would it be if some douchebag now if they did the same thing and some douchebag is walking around with like Benjamin's friggin' ironed into his suit, you know? All right.
And now, for those watching, this is the time to take a screenshot so you guys can check out the guests on the show. Make sure to support their Kickstarter and become a fan on their art page.
I love that.
God, this is awesome, dude. I need to come on. I need to come on more often for this.
Honestly, I feel like I should have been dressed in a suit. This is too professional for me. Like I wasn't prepared. I did the last one, and the last one was great. This is like a whole other level. I'm like, next time I'm gonna be like on horseback and just like all ready to go.
You need like a gigantic desk, like they do in the night shows. One of those little skinny microphones.
I'm gonna get my own music. Like, yeah, we're gonna go all
behind curtains and like a band to the side. Your kids could just be playing the drums or something. You gotta make that happen now.
I know, right, dude? I need some room, but I'm now thinking about it. So for issue 3, did we get more of that?
You do get more of that. Every issue going forward is going to have some phrasing. You're going to get more information as far as the people themselves through the story. And you're going to get a new villain towards the end. Big spoiler, because this is a continuing issue. That has connections to Hmong mythology too. And a lot of the characters and the villains mostly are going to be connected to Hmong mythology. So that's one of the things I want to incorporate with this story.
I love that.
Yeah.
So is this, I thought it was just like a 3-issue mini.
Well, no, the arc is 3 issues, and that's going to be her first adventure.
But this is an ongoing.
It is an ongoing, but you're going to see some changes going with issue 4. First off, and a little bit of a spoiler, but in issue 3, there's going to be 3 deaths through characters, 2 that you've been introduced already, and 1 that has not been introduced yet, but has been hinted at, going back to issues 1 and 2. So you're going to see 3 deaths, and I'm the type of person where I don't like the whole they come back later on. Once these people die, they're dead. They're gone. There's no Lazarus pits or anything like that. They're gone.
Yes.
So
see, I really like that take, and for me, my personal rules are: if someone's dead, keep them dead. But if we don't see a body, they ain't dead yet. Yeah, and so I mean,
depending on the publisher, even if you see the body, it might not be they're really dead.
Yeah, certainly. Like there's ways around it, but don't you can only play that so many times. Like I'm a big fan of Lost. I'm rewatching it right now, and I remember I would watch all the interviews. I loved getting into the minds of the guys who had created it and whatnot. And they were talking about the 3rd season, and one of the main characters, Charlie, ends up dying. But they hinted at his death throughout the whole thing. Like they had created, like through all of season 3, they're like, he's gonna die, he's gonna die, he's gonna die. And then they said, partway through, they realized, oh crap, we actually have to kill him. Like we've pushed this so hard that we now have to do it. If we don't, we're just teasing people.
I have a theory about Lost. I don't think they knew year from year if they're getting renewed, because there are a lot of times where you would be like, we have this storyline, and then the next season we're like, okay, now we have to implement that storyline, even though we really didn't know if we were going to do it. So I've always had that theory about Lost, that they didn't know if they were going to be renewed past the next season every year.
So it's not. So it's kind of like that. You're not wrong. What it was in that case, though, and I just recently heard an interview, because again, I'm totally obsessed with these guys. What they did was, when they came at it, they were building the pilot episode, and they said, so we want to do like 2 seasons or so. And they're like, and the ABC was like, well, we're looking for 10. And they're like,
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
How about we do 3? And they're like, how about 9? And they're like, So it was this fight all the way through. So at the end of season 3, they finally were able to announce, we're going to do 6 seasons. The next seasons are each going to be only like 16 episodes or whatever they were. And they said that literally they were creating a puzzle and they didn't know how many pieces there were in it.
And that makes sense.
So many people argue about that, and that's something that we can take into our own projects. When you're outlining, you need to be able to look ahead. And the thing is that we, especially us indies who are working for ourselves, we don't have someone over our shoulder telling us, you have to do this, you have to do that. Mm-hmm. So because of that, there's no good excuse for you to not have stuff planned out and know where you're going.
Yeah. And then and that actually can go back to, if you have a good editor, that's what they're there to help you out sometimes for. You give them that outline of what you want to do for issues 3, 4, 5, 6, and they're gonna be like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, but this might help you out if you do this. And planning is everything in anything, any project. Planning is everything. So the more you can plan that out, the better it's going to be.
And that's one of the first questions I'll ask someone is, okay, so what's the outline for the whole series? Like, where are we going? And a lot of times they'll be like, well, I've just hired you for 1. And I'm like, yeah, but 1 needs to play into the rest of them, and you should be able to read the last, like say it's a mini series or whatever, you should be able to read the last one and go, whoa, like they put stuff in from the very first issue that goes all the way there. It makes you seem way smarter than you usually are. Like, even for myself, I love to have that stuff set up. I'm like, oh, he's brilliant. No, he planned. That's the real thing. He planned. Like, they were just smart enough to look ahead and go, what foundation do I have to lay to make this really come off well? That's all it is.
You know who does that well is Scott Weldon with Harlan Buck. He does that so well. And the way he pulls things back from the first couple issues and then brings it back to the current issue. And you're like, yeah, I remember you bringing that up at one point. And so you're right. It's all about planning it out. And if you don't have it planned, it's going to fall apart eventually.
Yeah. I think he's lucky in that that's pretty much the only thing he works on. And he gets to live in one world. Whereas, like, I can't tell you how often someone will be like, cool, so we're working on this book. Here's my Bible of all my characters. And I'm like, I ain't reading that. And they're like, well, I'm like, I ain't reading it. I won't remember it, A. And B, if I can't understand your story without having read that Bible, you screwed up. So I'm just not going to touch it.
It's funny you mentioned about Scott, because I had this great parallel for him, is that he is the Todd McFarlane of the indie world, where that he has this one book, he's going to stick to that book, and everything around him is all about that one character, because he wants to make that character the best it could be. And that's the same thing with Todd McFarlane with Spawn. Once he got on Spawn, he didn't want to really do anything else. He just wanted to stick with Spawn. Yeah, he went to toys, but comics-wise, he only wanted to do Spawn. Yeah. He wanted to make Spawn the best character. And he wanted his whole focus for comics on just Spawn. So yeah, it's right, dude.
That's very true, actually. And I'm not always a huge Todd McFarlane guy. Like, I try not to talk shit, but it comes out now and then. But you're dead on right there. Like, give someone the win when they earned it, and he's earned an awful lot, obviously. But that's one where he focused on one thing. He fell in love with that, and they're over issue 300. Like, that's massive.
Yeah, I hope to someday be that way. Who knows? I
know, right? There was a creator early on, and I won't mention any names, but they were talking about they wanted what was awesome, buddy? Okay. I think he's talking about I think he was also talking about the commercials.
Oh, are these just like really delayed? They're just coming in all of a sudden.
Well, Rob's, they have other things to do. They're busy guys.
They're prepping. I know they're prepping other commercials. I get it. I'm sorry.
Right? He's making a commercial right now. No, but they wanted to do it like seasons, and it was going to have 10 episodes a season or 10 issues a season for 10 seasons. And they were looking at releasing a book a year, and I was like, dude, you realize that that's 100 years, right? And they were like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah, like if you continue at this pace, that's 100 years. And I think that ripped them apart because production has really slowed down since then. Like, it's like you might have to change this a little bit.
Oh, okay, so they are delayed a little bit because of watch party.
Yes, okay.
Understandable. All right, so I just won't be a jerk about the delay then.
Well, it's a little late for that now, Kyrun.
Sound like my wife now.
Well, I didn't call you honey, so that works at least.
Okay, yeah.
No, but getting on to your wife a little bit. Always wanted to say that.
Hey,
I know, right? Do we have that kind of relationship?
It depends on how much you're paying me.
Collaboration. But where she comes in, she is Hmong, and that's where the inspiration for Saw came from, correct?
Well, okay, not necessarily because of her, but through her. So yeah, she is Hmong. And what the inspiration was is her uncle actually teaches Hmong here in Sacramento at one of the local schools. And he has a Facebook page called Introduction to Hmong Culture. And I follow this page, and just so happened through Facebook's algorithms, one of his posts popped up talking about Saw and what Saw was for their culture. And I was just reading it over, and I was like, that's interesting, because it was talking about how Saw has this giant battle axe, and it uses it to. I had to change a little bit because in their culture, Saw was a little bit of a trickster. It's sort of like a Loki in a way. He was a little bit of a trickster. So I changed it to where Saw is more of a serious character, but they're like Saw watches over the land, things like that. And I was like, dude, this could be converted to a comic book if I wanted to. And I told her about it. I was like, how would you feel if I made this into a comic book character? And she was very indifferent at first. She's like, I don't care. Do it if you want. I was like, well, you don't care. It might be talking about your culture. She's like, yeah, go ahead. Not as long as you're not bashing anybody, it's fine. I was like, all right. So what happens now is I will write out the script and I'll tell her what's happening, and I'll be like, how does this go? Like, am I saying this right, or is this how it could, like, for ceremonies, things like that? It's like, is this what you guys do? And she's like, yeah, but you know what? Talk to my uncle, or talk to my sister, or talk to somebody else, and she'll direct me to somebody else that has more insight onto it. Like the phrasing for issue 2, where she shows you like different phrases of how to do things. That was all my sister-in-law. She can write Hmong and speak it, and my wife can't write Hmong. She can only speak it. So I was like, how do you say these things? And my sister wrote it down and handed it to me. And I was like, can you do this for every issue I make? She's like, yeah, I guess so. It's only a couple of lines here and there. I was like, all right. Family discount, I guess.
You're right. Are you finding, and that's another thing that can be difficult. Are you finding your way into Hmong society at all? Like, are they talking about your book? Is that coming out? Like,
no. Well, not necessarily. I've found a couple people that are really into comic books that are Hmong, and they've gotten into it a little bit. But you have to understand, the Hmong people are, especially the ones here in the United States, they're usually first generation Americans. Like, my wife just became an American citizen last year.
okay.
And her most of them immigrated from Laos in the late 70s, early 80s. So a lot of their parents are either just becoming citizens or still are just considered immigrants with green cards. So they still keep a lot of the traditions and don't really care about other things like entertainment and TV sometimes. So their kids are just getting introduced to things like comic books, and of course, kids like teenagers, they are all only caring about video games and their tablets and stuff. So there's not a lot of people in the Hmong community that really are into comic books. But there are a couple here and there that I've reached out to, and they're like, this is cool. And they picked it up and they read it, and they're grateful that I didn't overplay the Hmong part of things and make it too campy or too stupid. Chuck, it sounds kind of no problem. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I'm really glad to do it.
But most people, at least at this point, just were like, they were indifferent on there being a Hmong superhero. So
yeah, It was
Oh, go ahead.
difficult for me when I did Welcome to the Void. My main character was Tibetan, but I had no connection to the Tibetan people or to the Asian community at all. And I remember doing my first convention, and you want to scream like, I have this character. Thank you. I have this character, and they're Asian. I think you'd enjoy this, and you can't.
Yeah.
Because that's just wrong. You know what I mean? Like, you want to sell the book. You don't want to necessarily specifically try to sell its diversity.
Yeah, you don't want to pander it, basically. Like, you don't want to, and I've come to that issue too, especially being someone who isn't Hmong. I'm like, how do I tell people that this is the first Hmong superhero that's being published without me becoming pandering and maybe turning people off on it? You know, and especially for Hmong people, a lot of people don't know who Hmong people are outside of California, Minnesota, and Washington, because that's where the big majority of Hmong people are, in those 3 states in the United States. So outside of those areas, most people don't know what that is. So it's like, how do you find that nice balance of, okay, I want you to look at this character and look at the uniqueness of it, but at the same time buy it because it's really cool, you know? So
yeah.
It's a tough selling point. I still struggle with it even after 3 years of trying to get this book out.
Now, I'm just literally coming to this in my head now, but in King of the Hill, their neighbors were Laotian.
Yeah.
Does that mean that they were Hmong?
Not necessarily. The Laotian people there's 3 or 4 countries that actually are part of Laos or Laos.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And Hmong people actually don't have their own country. They were nomadic people that lived in the mountains of Laos. And a lot of them were scattered out of their homes during the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War. And that's why a lot of them had to come to the United States, because they were being hunted down by Vietnam fighters, because they helped. Hmong people helped the United States with guerrilla warfare in that period of time. And after the war ended, the United States left, but the Hmong people were there with very angry Vietnamese soldiers, and they started being hunted down and killed. And so they had to become refugees and leave that area into the United States.
Wow. That's really cool. That's really interesting, man. I guess let's go back to, just since we have less than 10 minutes left, was there anything else was there anything you wanted to ask me even about collaborating, or anything you wanted to specifically talk about where collaboration was concerned?
Well, I was hoping we'd have more time, but I was really wanting to get into, like, with you and Sean, when you're working with Belial, like, how your guys' thing, or how you two collaborate, because that's a unique project that you guys have, because it's a co-production between you and him. I know it's a lot of it's his idea, but you're also inputting a lot of things onto it. Yeah. So how does that work out with you?
Well, so the way that came about was he had a general idea of what he wanted to do, and I took it and I went, cool, and I wrote a treatment immediately for the entire series, and I think I always had it broke down to 4 issues. And I had it written down, and that was my idea, and he went over and he's like, oh, that's really cool. And then when I started writing it, I realized it was a Hell book like any other Hell book, and I wanted to really kind of make it different. So I thought, you know what, I just want to write something hilarious. Like, I just want to have some fun. And so I put that in there without really telling him, and he was like, holy crap, I really like this. This feels really different. And I'm like, okay, great. So glad you like it, because then I'd have to go back and do it again, which I'm not excited about. But
that fits the 2 of your guys' personality to a T. The comedy side of things. You guys are both just jokes on jokes on jokes. A lot of times very bad, bad jokes.
Even to a negative level, yeah, no, totally. And so we just had a blast. Now a lot of it comes down to is, like, in this book, I actually told him that he should be credited, because he said he wanted to be, he was like, I've done a lot of stuff. I'd like to be credited as a co-writer. And I said, no offense, but I'm actually writing it. Like, you're not writing it, but you are story editing. And he was like, oh, I said, you deserve a story editing credit. You should have that. And he was like, nice. Well, yeah, how do I get that? And I'm like, we're going to write you in as the story editor. Like, we're going to credit you for that. And he's like, oh, cool. So he's been enormously helpful where that's concerned. But at the end of the day, like, he'll come in and he'll say, well, what if we change this phrase a little bit or that? But, you know, when I do that as an editor, I would never ask for a writing credit. And that's something that a writer knows. He's not necessarily gonna understand that going into it. And he was very open with the idea of, oh, cool, I get to have an editing credit. And I was, yeah, man, he's done an absolutely fantastic job. And then from there, of course, we have Gregory Warrenchak working on the pencils. And so now what we do is he'll look at the art and make sure that as an inker, he knows what the story is and what's working on. And then I will go through the actual script, and I will make sure that there's spots for lettering there and that everything kind of flows and works. Because one thing I do love about Greg is that Greg is very open to cutting down panels or adding panels if he feels like it's important. So like for me, when I write, I never, ever, ever write more than 7 panels on a page. That's like, unless I'm trying to do something crazy dynamic, which I really haven't tried to, I don't like to write more than 7 panels on a page. And I got one page and it was 8 panels, and I was like, I know I did not write 8 panels. And he said, you know what? I could feel that it needed just a little bit more, so I added that extra panel of reaction. I was like, that's awesome. Excellent. Like, yes, he was dead on right. So we both really kind of lean into our strengths on that one, which is really good. And we're both fairly supportive of the other guy, which is really a big deal, especially, you know, one starts to get hurt, well, the other one's going to take over and move on. So it's been really good, man.
Cool. And I'm assuming that's the same way with you and Eric with Essence House then.
Yeah. So that one's different because we're both writers, right?
Ah,
okay. So with that one, we like I haven't written all of that at all. We'll get together and we'll plan out most of the season. Or like with season 1 and season 2, we planned out the first several episodes and then the last episode, so that we knew where we were going to, and then as we went up, we would start to outline even more and more until it all came together and was cohesive. And so that's what we're doing now, heading into episode 13 is recorded and at Eric's house right now. So we now have up to 15 all blocked out. And nice. We're going to have another meeting once 14 is done, and we'll block out the rest of the season and have it set up. So, cool. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. What is up next, Rob? We're really interested. I love Gamal Hennessy. I get his newsletter. Do you know him?
I've heard of him.
You guys will be able to be part of the business of independent comic book publishing. Stay tuned as more indie event comes your way.
There you go.
That's so professional. I love that.
It is. And Rob's voice is just so nice, dude.
I know, right? It's silky. It's silky.
Silky.
But no, do you know of Gamal Hennessy?
I've heard of him, and I know the Kickstarter he's running for right now, right?
He's got some serious pedigree. He is a lawyer who's worked mostly with in the field of IP recognition and whatnot, and he's worked for companies like Marvel and all that. So the dude knows his stuff. That's definitely something that you guys should go and check out once you're done listening to us yammer away.
I know. I guess we only have like a minute or so now.
We have about a minute. So why don't you tell us about yourself, where everyone can find you, all that stuff.
Well, you can find me at tauruscomics.com. On Facebook, it's facebook.com/tauruscomics, and Instagram and Twitter is at tauruscomics. Or you can find my Kickstarter. Just search Saw the Lightning Wielder issue 1-3, and it should come up.
And I'm Chuck Pineau. I'm a writer and editor. You can find me on Facebook, Chuck Pineau. You can find me on Twitter at ChuckyPin. You can find my Chuck's Raw Reviews, where I talk about terrific books, including Saw the Lightning Wielder. And you can find that on YouTube. And, of course, you can find Essence House, Belial, Welcome to the Void. You can find all of that on the Facebook groups, as well as my own publishing wing, Bonfire Press. I think we're pretty much done. Rob,
Yeah.
is there anything else that you need from us before we head on and talk to Gamal?
Hey, Meredith.
You're
Muted.
I think you're out. You're muted.
We would love to hear your voice.
I had such a smart, witty remark, and I was just like, yeah, this is Rob. You know what?
Rob has never looked so good.
No, that's true.
I'm like, where did he put this banner? I've been looking for this. But you guys, you have about a minute. He actually went over so he could start the live stream with Gamal. I hope that you guys can head over there. I'm going to pop this this banner up with your... I hope that we have it directed to the right place. I think it's going to your store, Kyrun.
If it's going to, Kyrun.
Okay, because I was like, it's Kyrun. I know it is.
Everybody says Kyrun. I don't know why, but it's okay.
But,
You know why? Because
that's where
it's much more fantastical. So they're like, oh, it's Kyrun. That's beautiful. And you're like, no, it's just Kyrun.
Oh, wow. Better than Chuck.
That was a nice Chuck.
Hey, I'm Chuck. Like, really, what the hell am I talking about? It's not like there's some fantastical way of saying it's Chook, all right? It's
Chuck.
Right?
Chuck.
There's an apostrophe in there.
Chuck. You need to get like an Italian Chuck or something. I don't know.
Chuck. It's Chuck.
There it is. Oh my gosh, I was looking for that. Yeah, so many folders. So anyway, it was such a pleasure. I hope that you guys can tune in for the rest of Indie Vent. We've got the playlist on the YouTube. It's YouTube. You can find it on Geek Insider. You can find it on Indie Volt, and wherever it is that you guys want to take that playlist, take the QR, not the QR code, the URL, and you can embed it on your website. You can embed it on your own YouTube channels and share the love. So
that's awesome.
Is there anything else that you want to just say before I shut down the room?
I think we're splendid. Oh
no, I want to say that is Chuck, and he gives a. I can't cuss, so.
Oh, thank you, buddy.
But hey, we're gonna try to keep it clean.
We're trying. We tried. I think I swore once, but I tried very hard.
Well, I'm going to end the broadcast now. You guys are free to talk behind the scenes, and then whenever you're ready, just leave the studio. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Thank you.
Hashtag spread the word. Love ya.
Peace, love, and comics, guys. Take care.